Hello, Matujimer, and you're watching Hornbill TV's newsroom. The NLA monsoon session concluded yesterday, featuring discussions on the infamous NLTP Act, the construction of NH29, job reservations, immigration influx, and several other issues directly affecting the lives of the public. While we witnessed strong and memorable speeches from some MLAs, most contributions were limited to sharing views, opinions, and suggestions without any real debate on the issues. This raises the question of whether the lack of opposition in the NLA has deprived the people of a voice in addressing matters crucial to their lives and welfare. To discuss on this, I'll be joined by our associate editor, Al Muli from the newsroom. Hello, Al, can you hear me? Right, Al, thank you so much for joining me today for this discussion, and we'll be discussing about this matter thoroughly. But before that, let's discuss about it head-on. How does the absence of a formal opposition affect the legislative process and debate in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly? Let's start with that.
Yeah, first thing, did you get any news about the Liquor Prohibition Act being lifted?
No. So
far, nothing. And did we see any resolutions in the Assembly this time in the 5th session of the 14th NLA? Any resolutions?
No.
No decisions, right?
Right.
No bills, no resolutions, no decisions. And I think people again, this time for the about 14 or 15 time,
right,
in the tenure of this, in the tenure of the current generation of leadership in the government, they have been consistently, successfully able to divert the attention of the people from some of the very important, crucial issues that directly affect the people, and they have been very, very successful in doing that. And now, we are left to wonder what is going on. People in the media might know, political analysts and observers might know, and the government, they know, but the people don't know. I'll share with you a little bit about an interaction that I had on Twitter. So on Twitter, we had this conversation about the NLTP Act earlier,
right,
and then I told them, come on, nothing will happen. This is just another ploy of the government to divert our attention from the many issues that we're facing in Nagaland. A lot of them, we'll talk about it later. And someone actually commented, this guy really thinks that the government is talking about the liquor prohibition just to divert our minds, or because they're scared that people are going to start protests because of the extortion and the threats happening in Nagaland. And then even one of the speakers in the X group, the discussions we were having, he said, that's too far-fetched, Al, but people like us, journalists, we know. So in that sense, I believe that the lack of opposition in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly has left the people without a voice who can speak issues not directly affecting the higher middle class, the ruling class, the elite leadership, but directly affecting people like you and I, people who have to fight for auto fares, people who have to pay 500 extra for something on the market that costs, $200-300. We are the kind of people that have to go through threats and extortion. We have to bear the brunt of it. So people like you and I, our voices have not been represented in the assembly, and that's so sad.
Right. Right, Alden, if, as we know that we don't have an opposition, what mechanisms are in place to ensure that diverse perspectives are represented when there is no opposition in the NLA then?
Unfortunately, so unfortunately for us, there is no mechanism. There are no lobby groups. The account is no more. And during these times, I wish that the Sumi Hoho or the Ausenden or the Lota Hoho, the Angami organizations would step forward to put the grievances of the people before the assembly, before our leaderships, even by using the media, even by holding rallies, by representing our voice. We can be sure that at least, even if the government does nothing about it, we will feel heard. But so far, unfortunately, because there is no opposition, there is no counter remark in the opposition for our leaderships, that they feel that whatever they need to be done is according to their convenience, according to the way they see things as correct, that they would pass bills or take decisions which unfortunately will not be in our favor, because the kind of issues they are discussing are not necessarily directly affecting us. What we want is issues that directly affect us at the economic level, at the social level. So unfortunately, because we have no opposition, there's no voice to stand there before us, to stand before the assembly. And unfortunately, again, it's our fault, the people's fault, our community leadership's fault, our students' fault, because normally, generally outside, before assembly sessions, before parliament sessions begin, protests are taken out. People organize rallies and seminars, and they set up a list of grievances for the government to address. They lobby with the MLAs. So even MLAs and their MPs and the ministers, and even if their voices are not represented by their elected representatives, it's the community organizations that take the lead. They will say, hey, this time we need this issue to be discussed. This time we need to address this problem. So before parliamentary sessions begin, generally that's what community organizations do. But in Nagaland, yes, it's our fault that we don't have an opposition. It's also our fault, the people's fault, that we have failed to stand up for our right to be heard, and also to stand up for what we believe is right and will work for us.
But then again, moving on, what steps are being taken to involve citizens in the legislative process to compensate for the lack of opposition then? Is there any mechanism as such as well?
I think the only voice that could have been represented by the non-government entities are the media, and by using the media we could have done that. Community organizations could have used the media, the local media, the newspapers, the TVs to say we need to address this issue. We could have set up a pressure mechanism where all the communities and the organizations and the leaderships could have sat together, and they could have lobbied before the assembly so that this address would be discussed, debated, and a solution arrived at. But unfortunately, no. That is also no.
Right. And can you provide examples of how public welfare issues have been addressed effectively without any opposition in the assembly, if there are any then?
Oh, good question. This situation that we are in Nagaland right now is the best example, Atu. Remember, just before the assembly session started, there was this whole uproar, rallies and protests, and write-ups in the media, the HornbillTV, YouTube channel, everyone were talking about the extortion and threats, right? The threats to citizens, the assault of the pastor, the death threats and the extortion activities. We were talking about the very, very pathetic power situation in Nagaland. We were talking about the bad roads outside Dimapur. We were talking about the corruption. And even amid this, there was widespread optimism that the government would finally take this opportunity to address these issues, especially extortion, inflation in the market because of extortion activities, death threats to citizens. Everyone was expecting that. But as expectedly for the media, and we were watching it, someone said, oh, NLTP. And suddenly nobody remembers the death threats anymore. Nobody cares about the inflation in the market, the price manipulations. Nobody remembers the contaminated water in Nagaland. Nobody is talking about the roads. Suddenly everyone is, oh, Mudulaga, NLTP is going to be lifted. This has happened many times, many times, and I can assure you, if you go through the archives, the Nagaland Post, Morong Express, Sister Mirror, every time an important session is about to start, there will always be a wrench in the cock there. Someone will throw in the wrench and suddenly we're not talking about issues. Our minds are diverted. And this has happened many times, and the government will always use, it's not just in Nagaland, it's like that everywhere, and we know it as diversions, diversionary tactics that the government uses, the politicians use. So they use these opportunities and they try to divert our minds so that the problems that they cannot handle or they refuse to handle will be kept aside, and the topics that interest the people the most will be discussed. And this is the best example, what we are seeing now, Atu.
Right. Also, Al, let's focus more on this session, monsoon session of the NLA here, when it comes to the next question. How has the lack of opposition in the NLA impacted the ability of civil society to advocate for important social and economic issues? Now let's talk about now NBCC and other civil society organizations, and let's focus on the NLTP Act for now, for this question.
Actually, way back 2018, when T.R. Ziliang became the Chief Minister of Nagaland, I think one of the biggest and most disappointing developments to ever take in the Nagaland socio-political apparatus was the declaration that the government was now oppositionless. Mm-hmm. And it's actually very dangerous, Atu. In any a political institution where there is no check and balances, no opposition, there is always first the danger of dictatorship. And second, there is always the danger of the lack of accountability, which will lead the government departments to do whatever they like. And it is common sense, and history has shown us too, and there is data also. The best performing governments in the world are governments that have very strong opposition. Mm-hmm. And unlike the misconception that a strong opposition will always wreck the government, the ruling government, no, it doesn't work like that. The strongest government will always have the strongest opposition. And in any political institution where there is strong opposition, the government will always perform the best. They're the best performing Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, for instance. And you compare it to the Narendra Modi government right now. What the opposition ensures is that the government is always performing. The government always picks up issues to address those issues that directly affect the common people. They will not go for big issues. They will go for the small issues that directly affect the government. And that is why the India bloc right now, they could win 99 seats, the Congress party, for instance, because they were not talking about big issues. They were not talking about national issues right now. They were talking about the prices of tomatoes in the market. Right. So, because we don't have a voice in the assembly, we don't have a legislative voice in that sense for the people. And because our community organizations, they were not proactive in mounting up a common voice for the people, we didn't have a voice at the grassroots level too, not only at the legislative level. So I think it's a very good lesson for all of us, the tribal organizations, the students' organizations, to start studying a little bit of their rights, especially in a democratic institution like ours. Their rights are important not because it is something everyone should claim. Their rights are important because what they are claiming is directly affecting their neighbors, their sister communities, their welfare. So all I can say is right now we missed a very big opportunity, and this is a lesson that we all should learn from Atu.
Alright, moving on again. As we know that this time the monsoon session, they of course discuss about the NLTP and the status of immigration influx and also reservation, job reservation and many more. But what are, according to you, what are some specific issues that you believe have been overlooked or inadequately addressed due to the lack of opposition in the NLA, especially in this session as well? Is there anything as important that was not discussed that you believe should have been discussed?
Right. Just first thing before we go into the question, Atu, just before the assembly session started, some of the guys in the media, we were just having a conversation. Assembly start and then key angle over this time though, and then someone said, this time though oil exploration bit hayonagi. Aro liquor bi ni kotha koribo na gi taikan because underground khan iman duk dia se, you know, underground la kotha bishi ulaya se, public khan bra ekdam gussa de buya se. To this time the taikan NLTP act to this time bi koribo na gi, and then there you are. Suddenly we have forgotten all our problems. So anyway, that's how the government works everywhere in the United States too. They have what you call the lobby system, where, you know, before the Congress sitting starts, they will strategize, they will come up with a plan, they will say, no, this is going on among the public, there is so much uproar here, so let's talk about this. You know, it's a common knowledge and people are still surprised that the government can fool them easily all the time, and this has been going on ever since the times of the Greeks, where, you know, democracy started, and then, you know, it was the leadership that started manipulating the conversations of the society and the community. So anyway, so some of the most important topics that were left out during the assembly sessions, and I believe they were not forgotten, I think they were left out. The first thing, obviously, the actions of non-state actors in Nagaland, extortion activities, threats to the common people. And another issue that was left out was inflation. I brought tomatoes, I think about 3 days ago. The previous week, it was, I think, about 40 rupees tomatoes per kg. 3 days ago, I brought it for 80, for instance. And then there were complaints just recently in our area about people selling pork for 400 rupees. Which is like 150 above the normal price that has been set by the administration. So inflation was something we forgot. The threat and extortion and the threats and the extortion activities, the threat to people's lives, that was something that the government could have discussed and regained a little bit of the confidence of the people. That was another. Power. We have been suffering in our area too. For 2-3 weeks, we don't have power. It'll come for about 2 or 3 hours and then go. You cannot sleep at night. You have to stay awake till 7-8 in the morning because you cannot sleep. Our children are falling ill. They cannot sleep. They're crying day in and out. Couples are fighting. Families are fighting. Heat and the temperature.
Right.
The bad roads, that was another topic that was left out. We talked so much about National Highway 29. Where the landslide hit a portion of the road at Zubza, right? Or Zubza? Right. Zubza. Everyone was talking about National Highway 29. Nobody talked about the roads just here on the outskirts of Dimapur. Right after you pass the bridge, there are no roads. There are no roads. And then market price manipulations. Nobody talked about the market price manipulations because of the business syndicates. So these are some of the issues that the assembly could have addressed, and they could have at least instilled a level of confidence in the people that government be ini moi kan ge olobdo remember Grievance say, but no, unfortunately it's such a sad situation for all of us too.
Right. You have mentioned earlier about how citizens could participate in the governance effectively without when there's no opposition, like you have mentioned, they can make use of the social media before the assembly. Could you stress more on that as well, for our citizens to also know about what role they can play when it comes to the governance, and what help they can seek also when they want to voice out their problems and their issues when the government does not have an opposition?
Yeah, I think this is a very good time for the people of Nagaland in this generation to make use of social media to express their grievances. But the sad thing is that I think we Nagas have come to look at social media as a place for entertainment, right, instead of using it as a tool to represent democratic voices here, to represent your issues. I know a lot of people from my generation that uses social media to highlight their grievances. It could be law and order issues, it could be fights in the colonies, it could be market prices, it could be extortion activities where they express their feelings. This is not right, this is not correct, this is not a good thing to do. The government should do this, the government should do that. Unfortunately, those are kind of expressions that are far and few. And for the younger generation, mostly we see social media not as a tool to actually further our welfare objectives. For the younger generation, we see social media only as a tool to entertain ourselves, to keep us occupied all the time. Music, reels, Instagram stories, and a place to criticize people, you know. And it's a toxic place. It could have been used in a way where we could bring before the government. Nifirio is on Instagram, our ministers, MLAs are on Instagram, the Prime Minister. There have been a lot of instances in the past where the government has used social media expressions of voices to actually formulate policies. There have been a lot of time, I don't have to go through all this, there have been a lot of time union ministers have seen the post of common citizens to address certain problems in their areas. So I think we need to change the mindset that social media is only for dancing or for photographs or for entertainment. It is actually a tool that can be used effectively to a wide range of audiences if you try to strategize a little bit, if you try to target your audiences and form your opinions in such a way that government can also hear you. The media, the newspapers are also a very good platform for the community organizations. We're always waiting for where is the student organization, where is the tribal hall, why are they not speaking on our behalf? Then there is the newspapers. We have open forums in the newspapers where you can write in, and I'm very sure that Nagaland media has always kept the forum open for the communities to express their grievances. We could have used them effectively every day, but so far we have not been doing that. But I hope our youths will start using social media for positive actions where they can express and where they can represent democratic voices to address welfare issues instead of using social media only as a tool for entertaining themselves.
We're coming to the end of this discussion here, but could you tell us more about what are the potential risks of having a one-sided legislative process, especially in terms of policy making and implementation then?
It's very simple. No one will be there to speak for you. Right. Your voices won't be heard. It will be North Korea, where there is only one government. It will be like China. And even, we are seeing some expressions, some manifestation and projection of those kind of traits emerging even in the Nagaland government, because nobody is there to say, hey, that's wrong. No, you shouldn't do that. That resolution is wrong, we need to take it off because it's affecting the people. Hey, who is taking care of the roads? Who is taking care of the water supply? What happened to the power supply? What are we going to do about extortion? How are we going to protect the people? Are you protecting the people? Are you doing this? Nobody is there to tell the government that. Nobody is there to point the finger at the government. That is why it is easy for the government to always use their fist in this regard.
What role can independent media and civil society play in filling up the gap left by the absence of formal political opposition then?
I think we need to start engaging with the media. The media is the most effective tool that the community organizations and the citizens in general in Nagaland have. This is the only tool that they can utilize so that they can air their grievances before the government. So right now the media is the only option for them. And I think it is time for the media to also educate the community in regard to their rights. Hey, our forums are open, why don't you use us? And you can represent your voice here. Or these are your rights, this is what you should be demanding. So it is our duty, the media, to also educate the people about what they're missing out, because there is no voice of opposition representing them in the government.
Right. I think that's about all. Thank you so much, El, for joining me today for this discussion. Thank you so much for all the information. Thank you. The NLA monsoon session concluded yesterday, and it featured a lot of discussions about the infamous NLTP Act, also the NH29, job reservations, and a lot of other issues directly or indirectly affecting the lives of the public. While we witnessed strong and memorable speeches, most of the contributions were, as we could see, were limited to sharing of views and opinions and suggestions, and less of debates. And this left us with the question of whether the lack of opposition in the NLA has deprived the people of a voice in addressing the matters that are crucial to their lives and also their welfare. And when we talk about how the citizens can still be a participate more effectively in the governance where there's no opposition in the NLA, like our associate editor suggested, social media could be a very good platform for the citizens also to voice out their grievances, and also that the issues that they want the government to discuss, because we do not have, as we can see, we do not directly have a voice to, for us in the NLA. I think that's about all for now. Keep watching Hornbill TV.